As a bit of an annual reminder, for this video, these aren't necessarily just games that released in 2024. Rather, any game that I had the opportunity to play throughout this year qualifies. With that in mind, let's get stuck in. Something aside from my usual genre that I cover here, Helldivers 2 has been nothing short of a phenomenal experience when playing with my friends. Highly cinematic and sporting a strong power fantasy, especially after a shift in design philosophy due to listening to player feedback, I've returned to this game routinely throughout the year since launch. I found myself playing this game for too many sessions too quickly, and that created a bit of a burnout, especially when I come to grips with its handful of missions that are all pretty samey, but the team at Arrowhead have been great at player feedback and routinely shape up cool new elements like new mobs or environments. Their latest work with the Illuminate has been especially fantastic. A good couple hours of shooting the shit here and there with friends and spreading democracy across the cosmos earns Helldivers 2 my honorable mention of 2024. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door really has a special place in my heart. Its predecessor, Paper Mario 64, was technically my first RPG ever, and while I still earnestly hope for an HD remake of that game, I was more than ecstatic to see The Thousand-Year Door get some refreshed modern love and attention. Most gripes that many people had with the original were truly listened to, boasting a lot of quality of life changes, both large like with the near instant party member switching, as well as with the more accommodating pipe room directly under Rogueport's main plaza. The thought that I even considered the original GameCube version of the game was still even remotely viable was completely flipped on its head the second I saw one particularly gargantuan edition in Chapter 4 that was honestly the game changer for me. Accompanied with an entirely remade soundtrack, new animations to really make already what was such a colorful world really shine, and the fact that I chose to stream this game with you all here on YouTube, and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door remake was such a memorable time looking back through my catalog this year. Final Fantasy XIV's Dawntrail expansion dropped smack in the middle of summer, and an expansion launch for any MMO is always bound to be a certified good time in my book. Daily veterans and returning players alike exploding into new territories, new tales and wonders to be told, and in Final Fantasy XIV's case, a new leg on the wonderful storytelling that I've come to expect. Although it did miss the mark a tiny little bit for me. Without spoiling anything, I'll just say that the pacing was by and large one of this expansion's biggest flaws. Its first half rife with tedious explanations and cutscenes, with not much meat in between to feel all too satiating. It felt like at sometimes the knob was set all the way to max and then quickly lowered to a simmer. What's more, Dawntrail was always at risk of issues like this solely for being the expansion to launch after Endwalker, a grand ending to a massive and successfully built story that was a decade in the making. Trying to sell on a new story while bringing back the characters we've come to love and then continuously pushing them away so we could serve as a mentor to the expansion's new central character Wuk Lamat ended up becoming a double-edged sword. That's not to say that the story, premise, and characters of Dawntrail itself is going to be a miss with me, however, and while the later half of the expansion's base story was able to recapture my attention in full, the expansion itself as a whole has so far been completely enjoyable. The new jobs have been awesome, the dungeons and fights spectacular, and I'm really looking forward to whatever has been built up so far paying off in some way down the line. But if anything, I'm also just really grateful to Dawntrail because it gave me the opportunity to play one really awesome journey in preparation for its release. It's no secret that Final Fantasy XIV pulls much from the rest of the series, and in the case of Dawntrail, director Naoki Yoshida explicitly stated that Final Fantasy IX would have a heavy presence. Thus, with less than a few weeks to the expansion's launch, I hunkered down and binged FF9 using the fan favorite Maguri mod to make the journey a little more clean. And may I say, what an absolutely fun and lovable cast of characters, with the Mad Lad Steiner and Vivi easily being my favorite cast members. What caught me off guard right away was how the story could quickly switch from moments of joy and levity to extremely grim situations with horrendous yet captivating detail. From Steiner's jester-like performances and outbursts to him realizing his own weaknesses, from Vivi's earnest confusion and lack of knowledge of the world around him to his desire to learn more about himself. Some of the other cast members I felt would go on to shine more than others, and while Zidane was a fun enough main protagonist, I found that I loved the gang at most when it was just that, a gang with everyone together. Except Amarat, I really couldn't give a toss about him. This was also my first time, believe it or not, experiencing Final Fantasy's active time battle systems, and while it was a little messy at the start trying to come to grips with it, I picked up on the quirks soon enough. It's not my favorite system, but it got the job done. So then between the journey itself, the great soundtrack accompanying it, and its charmful writing, Final Fantasy IX was an adventure I won't soon forget. Having never played Persona or Shin Megami Tensei, I only knew the faintest rumblings of what I could expect out of Metaphor ReFantazio. But after playing only the first handful of hours of the demo, I had already come to accept that Metaphor ReFantazio would be my life for the foreseeable future. The sheer scale of world building and unique stylistic choices that this game presents immediately sat well with me as a lover of lore in any gaming world. What's more, the writing team was brazenly open about pressing on hard subjects that other games might choose to refrain or deter from. The king is slain, and in a world already rife with anxiety and discord, where man spits upon his neighbor, it's up to a mishmash of people from all walks of life to raise up the protagonist in order to strike down Louise Guillaume, one of the most fun antagonists I've experienced in any RPG. The adventure that this game takes you on is a delight, accompanied with some of the best vocal performances I've heard all year round. It's a little bit of a shame then that I don't think the day-by-day pacing works all too well. Sure, the day-to-day interactions itself work well for some sections of the game, and it makes sense as you're working towards this final day where a new king will be crowned. But at the same time, there were moments that did feel a little out of place. The main flow of the game also became a bit repetitive. With each new town comes new quest givers, go into dungeon, complete dungeon by X day, and then wait until plot happens. But that's not to say that it was altogether poor, rather it just didn't quite feel too well in some sections of the narrative. What's more, I also felt really spoiled by the grandeur of the first main dungeon, and felt disappointed when other locations didn't offer either the same length and variety that the first one provided. Thankfully, Metaphor has more than offered its fair share of fun and difficult encounters. Character and archetype building was a blast to set up, and the journey more than offered its fair share of wondrous moments, heart tugs, and thoughtful sentiments. Here's to the next fantasy that Atlus sends our way. I honestly did not expect to go into Unicorn Overlord thinking that this niche tactical RPG from Vanillaware would go on to become my game of the year. Even superseding my recent enjoyment of Metaphor ReFantazio, Unicorn Overlord's immense character and team-building customization stole my heart for several months throughout the year. With its albeit simplified story, Fevrith actually had some enjoyable build-up and great environmental variety. The primary cast members, as well as the secondary cast members representative of each region, had some solid writing, and there was no small amount of impactful conversations between comrades. And while the overall map scenarios were straightforward and simplistic, combat was ultimately king and what truly won me over. The sheer amount of variety of characters on the roster and their respective classes were a joy to mix and match in creating my perfect squadrons. What's more, the game does a fantastic job at keeping just about every class relevant, as well as providing several methods of adjusting them, such as creating priorities and prerequisites for abilities to activate, and providing power progression, be it from upgrading classes, forging new weapons, finding special accessories, earning new items in the arena, or challenging difficult encounters in the promise of powerful rewards. There's even a smith toward the end of the game that can just take about any weapon and make it into endgame while keeping its unique effects. They really just let you have a blast with making the most of what the game offers, and it has truly touched the tactician's heart in me. And that is going to be why Unicorn Overlord became my 2024 Game of the Year. But please feel free to let me know down below what was your favorite game that you had the opportunity to play in 2024. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave it a like and consider subscribing for more gaming content. But until next time, I hope that you all have a great day.